cioè prima. Ma mi sembra la stessa. Ah sì, Puoi spegnere
È il riverbero forse?
sì, il feedback. Hai spento il suono del computer? Sì, adesso no.
Qua dici?
Sì, spegni quello. O chiudere il link YouTube, quell'altro.
Quello è già chiuso.
Quello dietro. Ok.
Bene.
Vogliamo cominciare?
Sì? Dai.
So hello everybody. My name is Giovanni Carmine, and I'm here at the studio of Lucas Herzig for this artist talk virtual studio visit. And we decided to make it in English to find a common non-language, first of all. Usually we speak Italian together. We come both from Ticino, so we when we meet we speak Italian. But we decided to make it in English in order to maybe make it more accessible to more people, this discussion that we're gonna have tonight. I'm here in Lucas' studio, which is situated in Zurich, Zurich Altstetten. And it's a shared space between different people. I would like just to thank the other artists that have this studio that left us alone tonight here instead of working.
Yeah.
So we explained why we speak in English, and everybody knows why we are here. We are here in the framing of the Swiss Art Awards that unfortunately couldn't take place this year, for the obvious reason that everybody knows. But the idea of the organizer of Swiss Art Awards, of Leah and Matilde, also were to activate anyway the participant of the 2020 Swiss Art Awards and to allow them to show what they're working on this year. So maybe do you want to talk about the project you didn't realize for the exhibition?
Yeah. Is attached to machines somehow, and would have been a big installation on all the three walls I would have had. And well, now this project is standing still because I don't have the place to realize it. And at the same time, when I work with papier-mâché, I always have quite a lot of spare material when I finish. And so in the free time, I started to do other figures with maybe freer shapes and some a bit more realistic or looking like symbols or yes. And I started to do a new work with these figures.
But before we start to talk about this, are you gonna realize the project for the Swiss Art Awards sooner or late? What do you think? Or showing it? Did you finish it?
It's not finished, not at all. And I think if I will realize it now, it won't take the same shape that I was thinking of.
Why not?
Because maybe too much time has passed and I start then to think about other things and how I could change it, and simply because time has passed, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have on our back, in the background, two works that you showed earlier this year inside these vitrines in Zurich at the Diele. This kind of space that deals a lot with public space in a peculiar place in Zurich where a lot of life is going on and kind of hipsters, but also junkies and people homeless live in this corner. And so the piece for the Swiss Art Award would have been a kind of continuation of this kind of displaying with the metal and so on. But do you want to tell us more about this work, which is entitled Soft Core, or this installation that was entitled Soft Core?
So as I was saying, also these figures that are hung are made out of papier mâché, which I always try or often try to make it look like another material, adding other materials like brick dust or curcuma or stone powder. And they basic I saw them as maybe fragments of something that we don't have as a whole anymore, or part of a system that we don't really know. And through these wires, I try to hang them together in a way that they could narrate or kind of narrate a story or a history. And but in the end, the way they are arranged also was the easiest way to make them hang straight, or in the way that the wires were all balanced somehow. So the construction of this story kind of depends on the display it is shown on. Yeah.
So do you want to tell us something about the shapes you made? I think
Yes.
there is a lot
Yes.
of humor in these shapes, but also interesting formal elements like geometry and everybody. I mean, I have to say, I saw the work at that time, and I asked myself about the material. I was wondering if it could have been bread or something
Yes. Yes.
like this, seeing the work from outside. But please tell us a little bit about the symbol you choose, or how do you develop this kind of images?
As I was saying before, I did most of these shapes in the same day after doing these geometrical shapes. So somehow it was freer. I wasn't constrained to do something that I had thought of before. So I used like shapes that I kind of intuitively liked, but and also something that I almost never do of not really, but like human figures. Maybe the one that looks like a bicycle seat here are actually two figures kissing, or there is a snake sorry, biting, yeah, biting its own tail. Here, that's actually the only real symbol existing. It's Ouroboros, and it's an ancient Egyptian symbol, I think. Should we go closer? And so,
I don't know. Maybe
Right.
it's enough for the moment.
yes. And then, well, the heart is the big one here on the right, is simply more maybe a little bit about my name also. And yes, but it's also a very known symbol, so I was interested in using it.
What about these stones? Are just
Yeah.
functional, or
They're functional in a way that they give a weight, they keep it
straight?
tense, yes. But also I like this contrast between the stones. They're like a real material, a natural material, and the papier mâché, which is I made it, but it kind of wants to look like stone maybe, or a harder material than what they are. So I like this contrast, and also the contrast between the wires and these metal bars, because one is a very industrial material and the other is a natural material that humankind have used for a long time before adapting it to its needs.
So there is a kind of tension between pragmatical reasons and
Yes.
this kind of fictionality that
Yes.
you want to reach in the choices of material and maybe symbols too.
Yeah.
Right.
And they kind of give a real weight to this fictional level layer.
Yeah, it works actually very well. I mean, that was maybe why I thought it was bread, because bread has a higher weight than papier mâché. Right. How do you came to work on with papier mâché? lead you there to this material?
I think there are like two reasons. One is that I originally come more from drawing, and with time began to be interested in using the paper in another way. So at the starting, I just folded drawings, for example, or hung them in corners of a room to give them a plastic 3D way. And then I started also using cardboard and doing big installations with it, filling whole rooms. So basically, the drawing went into the space. And then I started also to use it in a plastic way, or really like creating a new prime matter, materia prima. I don't know if it's, yeah, a matter, a material.
Yeah.
And also, I always liked earth and clay a lot, and this because it's so easy to shape and to bring in, in a shape. And at the same time, I didn't want to use clay because it's very used and very connotated and in a clear tradition somehow. And so I decided to make my own earth, basically, with a material I was already using. And I like this imitation of another material.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So you were telling before that you put different other materials inside the papier mâché to make it look like something different. I'm interested particularly into turmeric, curcuma.
See,
Um, why this using this kind of whatever food
yeah, yeah.
inside an artwork? Do you give a kind of special definition? Does it turn it in something different to you, apart of the color, obviously? That
Yes, I mean, I started putting other materials inside, like brick dust or clay, and at the time I was drinking a lot of curcuma tea because it's apparently good for health and has a lot of properties.
suppose, yeah.
And suppose, yeah.
No, well, we know.
And
turmeric is
and I always like the color a lot. It's when it's in a liquid form, it's very shiny and very deep and quite very interesting. And so I just had the idea to also mix in the papier mâché like I already did with other materials.
Yeah.
But it becomes a bit more.
So this one is
Yes. Maybe it becomes a bit more autobiographical if I put this powder that I put in tea, if I also put it on a sculpture, on an object. Maybe.
I mean, I'm wondering if it's loading the sculpture with a different kind of energy, or a kind of esoteric, maybe, or
Esoteric, not, but maybe a bit. I have a stronger connection to it because it's something I
that circulates into your body
also, but something that I consume simply and that I like. So, and I like to use materials that are already in my reach,
close to your
and to zwecksinnfremden, as we said before, to
misusing
it or misappropriating it. Yes.
Yeah. Going back maybe to your practice of drawing, you still draw a lot. I know it by you do a lot of sketches and that you use then to develop what you do with your ends. And I mean, I'm not surprised by the fact that you shifted your practice, which had also there was a lot of installation of drawings or big kind of paper used in a different way, to go in more into the object itself. Also because I think that the practice of drawing, even on a A4 paper, has a lot to do with space and how do you use the space of the paper. So it's like very much close to sculptural practice, I think. And maybe do you want to tell us about your installation you were doing using the paper, and explain a little bit which were the steps uh, that you do?
Well, I was drawing a lot, and then this was like 10 years ago. One of my first exhibitions, I had a basement for me, and at the time I was doing drawings and collages with based on the Starship Troopers movie, and
Why Starship Troopers movie?
I was interested in this movie and science fiction
Yeah,
generally, and I can't really
I think
recall
it's one
like
of the greatest
yeah, it's
film
beautiful.
ever.
It's beautiful. Yeah, yeah. I really like this trash side to it and this being some strange anti-war movie, but totally exaggerated. And I
With
really,
a
really liked
super
it.
fascist aesthetic,
Yes,
actually.
yes, 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 yes. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
And
Sorry.
yeah, yeah. I think at the time I was also there were some riots at the time that were taking a lot of space, and I also mixed these Starship Troopers soldiers with police in anti-riot gear, and yes, so I started to and it yeah no, but that's interesting. I started to draw a lot on photographies of architecture and using these Starship Troopers figures. So basically, then I did the same thing, gluing these drawings and photocopies of them in the room itself. So it was this step between drawing, collage, and room, then I guess. And there I started also to deform the paper to give it a volume, maybe, yes. And I think that, yeah, I didn't think about this before, but yeah, this collage thing was important.
This was more or less 10 years ago, you say.
Yes,
And what was 5 years ago?
2015.
You remember?
No, no, but I guess, well, the next that comes to my mind now is more like 2012, maybe,
Right.
where I had this exhibition in La Rada, where I used cardboard instead of paper and doing these big installations that tearing the cardboard apart and putting it together and shifting it that looked more like mineral figures and were like really big room installations. And then I really went into installation for a few years. Yes, I thought, yeah, no, 2015. Then it's true. I started doing big frottage on big, like 10-meter sheets of paper and frottages from concrete floors that were kind of irregular, and doing this frottage with graphite, then they look like stone,
Yeah.
like a granite ground. And I started gluing them on sculptures I had. So there was again this imitation of material and using the drawing in a plastic way. And yes, there were, yeah, that was like a,
So I mean, it's just
another,
like
yeah, yeah,
seems to make sense
yeah.
if the path you're walking, or the development of the work that has to do a lot with this material one side, paper or cardboard, this kind of thing, and practice that has to do a lot with space,
Yes, yes.
and maybe I was wondering when you were telling this reference to the Starship Troopers, how much do you see your work, your artistic work, or your being an artist as a kind of related to society, and as a social practice, or a practice that relates to what happens outside in the world?
Well, often I have the feeling that I'm not so focused on the present or the future, but more into the past, or a lot of on history and also archaeology. But also because like working with the past, it's also a way to see how things work also in the future. So, and I'm very interested in fiction,
Yeah.
Also as a way to, in science fiction mostly, because it almost never, it talks about the future, but talking to the present. So, yes.
So can we? I mean, we're gonna talk about archaeology in a moment, but can we maybe consider this object as a kind of remains of our contemporary society, so to say?
Yes, of a contemporary society, and or maybe kind of timeless, because I'm interested in shapes that recur and come more often,
Yeah.
and but would change of meaning also with time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, well, now we have this central figure that is obviously like kind of a penis, but also, I mean, in Roman times, it was a good luck object, and that had completely different meaning than now. So, in that sense, I think it's also interesting what it is now. It's a very trivial symbol and vulgar compared to another time.
Yeah.
And yes, and I think, and they kind of are also remain from the present, uh, because it's what I do now, and I like them to put them in a situation where they could be a fictional past, but like science fiction, in the end, you talk about the present.
Right.
Uh, yeah.
So I suggest. Um, where we spoke already a lot about space and material, but now we are talking about the present. So I suggest that we shift into your working space. We are here in a kind of common space, the corridor, where you install the show, and we go inside the working space, and maybe we can see some of your newer stuff. I'm gonna take this. Yeah.
Okay, so okay, back to the. Yeah.
One second, we're gonna be ready.
Super professional.
Yeah, maybe we should close the window.
Yeah. Prendo anche il nuovo cosa per il microfono, forse. Oh,
I think it's okay. So I just push it maybe a little bit up.
Yeah.
So we see here more of the shapes and which also shows very well the tension about your formal research and materiality. I think maybe you want to tell us a little bit about these works which you made a couple of years ago, which mix papier-mâché with industrial wood.
Yes. But this is actually new, but it's based on a series they've done last year. Yeah, 1.5 years ago. And this wood comes from Interior Furniture, which is a Swiss furniture
label
brand. Yes, and it has this kind of striped surface, which I really liked. And I was kind of interested at the time also to do, for the first time in years, something that could be simply hung on a wall in a room. And so, because these shelves were, closets are made for a domestic place, I was interested to do it with this material.
So this closet, you found it on the street, or you bought it?
I found it at the time I was working for a Brockenhaus
Okay, right.
second-hand shop in Zurich, and I had to empty a lot of flats, so I could keep these ones. Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
So maybe is maybe the moment to talk about archaeology. If you
Yeah.
if you talk about emptying
Mhm.
stranger flats.
Yeah, but that's also already kind of an archaeology in
Absolutely.
deciding to preserve something
Yeah.
that would be thrown away because it was too damaged to resell it. And also I'm fascinated by the fact that it belonged to somebody before and then it's reused.
But you use an interesting word. You say to preserve,
Mhm.
and do you think it's preservation what you did?
No, not really, no. But it's maybe it's more similar to people who destroyed, I don't know, ancient castles to build a new home for them,
Right.
or this attitude. But more to give this material a new value and reuse it.
Yeah.
Yes. And to also kind of elevate it to art when before it was a quite. I think the brand is not so cheap, but it's very cheap material. So to give it a new.
It's actually a terrible material.
It's horrible. It's horrible. Yeah. It's really horrible.
But you, I mean, you worked also like directly. You made an installation that had a direct reference to archaeology a couple of years ago on the Sechseleuten Square in Zurich. This like gigantic space in the downtown, which was a little bit also influenced by a job that you had at that time, and that had to do directly with archaeology. Can you tell us a little bit about that, and also maybe show us the difference between this wood and the wood you are hiding behind this curtain, which is very valuable.
Yes, or valuable. Yeah. I don't know how I can reach it, but wait, maybe I have.
I mean, it is not too difficult to.
Have they look 1 second?
We can we can turn the camera too.
Maybe I can.
Ah, great. I made a disaster. Sorry.
Maybe it's così dovrebbe funzionare. Va bene un po' di presentazione. Perché c'è la base sotto.
Sorry.
No. It's okay. So, at the time I was working with not exactly archaeologists, but with dendrochronologists, who are the people who measure and count the rings of the wood to say how old it is. Yeah. So they had a lot of wood like this, or mostly sections of wood. Most from pie dwellers. This must be much newer. I think it's probably Middle Ages or something, or I don't know.
But this is what they found in the lake.
I don't know if it was on a dry place or not, but yeah, probably yes, because it's very
dry.
Yeah. Anyways, like most of the things they have there are from pie dwellers, Pfahlbauer, that lived here in Zurich, but in many places in Switzerland, and it was like 4 millennia before Christ and until 1 millennium before. And so actually they have way too much wood, and often they just cut a little section out of it and throw away the rest. So I could keep a lot for sculptures. And so I created, like, use this original material to create fictional archaeological objects. So, and I was particularly interested in these pie dwellers, because when they were discovered at the end of the 19th century, they built a foundation myth for Switzerland, claiming to have found the original Swiss people, and in a kind of a nationalistic, patriotic move, and to give a validity to the country that has many different languages, and it's hard to unite culturally. And then after a while, well, they found out, yeah, they were living in swamps, and it was all quite dirty, and they don't have any high or known high art or something.
No high culture.
Yeah,
so to
it's
say.
very simple. And also, well, now the boss of the place I work, they just found many human bones with cuttings on it, like for butchering. So there's also the theory that maybe they were cannibals. It's not sure. It's not sure, but it's
Wow.
absolutely a possibility. So it really doesn't fit in with this
With the
foundation myth.
foundation myth, yeah.
And there I'm very fascinated by contemporary archaeology because it can debunk some or undo some interpretations of ancient objects that are based on patriotism or some pride or some fictions that are not.
So we are back to the topic before. What how do you see your practice in the contemporary world or in a social context? Actually, debunking of myth and symbolism.
Yeah, that's something I'm really interested in, like doing not a sabotage, but showing problems in the construction of myths or stories.
Right. Yeah, I think this is a good moment to ask you maybe the last question. What are the next project coming, or what are you working on at the moment?
It's a good question because
I know you're experimenting with video, for instance. Also.
Yes, that's something I started to do maybe 2 years ago a little bit, and now I'm really interested to continue on because I'm from this archaeology laboratory. There were these basically parasites eating this old wood, and I kept some of them and bred them. I still have them at home. They're very, very tiny. And so I'm filming these little parasites eating the wood, and I'm really interested in the fact that they eat history and destroy the information contained in it. That's absolutely one thing. But I will go on with these papier-mâché and iron objects the next time, because I think that's an interesting path I found, and I guess I will go on. But it's
great. And maybe we can see some of those things next year at the Swiss Art Awards.
Yeah, I would like to.
2021.
If it will take place. And
yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for this nice talk. We cannot do any Q&A, but you know how to find us, where to find us. And thank you for listening to us. And thank you, Luca, very much.
Thank you, Giovanni, for coming and for having this talk. And thank you if anybody is listening. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye.